The Bet by Anton Chekhov, adapted. Chapter 1. The Bet Begins. It is a cold, dark night in autumn. An old banker walks in his house. He thinks about something that happened 15 years ago. That night, 15 years ago, the banker had a party. Many smart men came. They talked about many things. One topic was the death sentence. Most of the men said the death sentence is wrong. They said life in prison is better. The banker said, "I don't agree." Killing a man quickly is better than keeping him in prison for many years. Prison kills a man slowly. That is more cruel. A young lawyer, only 25 years old, said, "Both are bad. But if I must choose, I choose prison for life. Living in prison is better than dying." The banker became angry. He hit the table and said, "I don't believe you. I bet you 2 million rubles you can't stay alone in a room for 5 years. The lawyer said, "I will do it." Not 5 years, 15. The banker shouted, "Done! I bet 2 million. And I bet my freedom," said the lawyer. The guests were shocked, but the bet was real. The banker was rich. He thought the lawyer would not last long. At dinner, the banker laughed. He said, "You will leave in 3 or 4 years. But the lawyer was serious. He started the bet the next day. He stayed in a small house in the banker's garden. He could not live for 15 years. He could not talk to anyone. But he could read books, write letters, drink wine, and smoke. He got books, music, and food through a small window. If he left even 1 minute early, he would lose the bet. He would get nothing. In the first year, he felt very lonely. He played music all the time. He did not want wine or tobacco. He read light books, stories about love and adventures. In the second year, he read only serious books. He studied old classic writers. In the 5th year, he changed again. He drank wine. He stayed in bed. He did not read. He wrote pages and tore them up. He cried many times. In the 6th year, he changed again. He studied hard. He read books on languages, history, and philosophy. The banker gave him many books. After 10 years, the lawyer had read over 600 books. Then he read only the Bible. The banker was surprised. He thought, "Why only 1 book now?" In the last 2 years, the lawyer read many different books. He read science, medicine, stories, and religion. He asked for books by Byron and Shakespeare. He looked like a man trying to hold many things but could not. Chapter 2. Fear in the Night. The night before the bet ends, the old banker walks up and down in his house. He remembers the bet and feels afraid. He thinks, "Tomorrow at 12 o'clock I must give him 2 million rubles. If I pay, I will be ruined." 15 years ago, the banker was very rich. Now he is not. He made bad choices. He lost money on the stock market. He is not powerful now. He is worried and weak. The banker thinks, "That young man will take my last penny. He will get married. He will live a good life, and I will have nothing. I will be poor. I will be ashamed. He will write to me every day and say, 'Thank you for the money. No, I can't let that happen.'" Then a terrible idea comes into the banker's mind. "What if the man dies tonight?" he thinks. "Then I won't have to pay. It will be easy. He is weak. I just need to do something quiet. No one will know. It is 3 o'clock in the morning. The house is silent. Everyone sleeps. The banker takes the key from a safe. He puts on his coat and walks out into the cold garden. The wind is strong. It is raining. Trees move in the dark. The banker calls the guard, but no one answers. Maybe the guard is hiding from the rain. The banker walks to the small house where the lawyer lives. He opens the outside door with the key. Inside it is quiet and dark. He lights a match. The room has a bed, a stove, and some chairs. There is no one in the front room. He checks the inner door. The seal is still there. The lawyer is inside. The banker peeks through a small window. The lawyer sits at a table. His face is thin. His hair is white. His beard is long. He looks very old. He does not move. A candle burns beside him. On the table is a piece of paper. The banker watches him. The man is alive, but he sleeps. The banker thinks he looks half dead. If I kill him, no one will know. No doctor will find the truth. But first I will read the letter. The banker takes the letter from the table and reads it. The letter says, "Tomorrow I will be free. I can leave and be with people again, but I do not want your money. I do not want the things of this world. I have studied life in your books. I have seen beauty, love, and power in them. I have seen the world through words, but now I hate it all. I hate your books. I hate your happiness, your wisdom, your riches. It is all a lie. Death will come and take it all. Nothing will stay. So I leave this place 5 hours before the end. I give up the bet. I do not want your money." The banker is shocked. He puts the paper back. He kisses the lawyer on the head and leaves the room. He walks home in the cold night. He feels weak and ashamed. At home he lies in bed but cannot sleep. In the morning the guards run to the banker. They say, "The lawyer left. We saw him climb out of the window and go to the gate." The banker tells the servants to go and check. They see the lawyer is gone. The bet is over. The banker takes the letter and hides it in his safe. He wants no one to see it. Chapter 3. A Choice of Freedom. The banker sits in his bed. He cannot sleep. He feels many things: shock, shame, fear, and sadness. He thinks about the lawyer's words. He gives up the money. The banker whispers. He lived alone for 15 years, and now he says he wants nothing. He hates everything. The banker remembers the last lines of the letter. The lawyer says that the world is a lie. He says that books, money, power, and beauty are not real. He calls them a dream. He says that people live for things that do not last. The lawyer says he has read many books. He learned many things. He has drunk wine, hunted animals, loved women, and seen beauty, but only in books. And now he sees that all these things are like smoke. They go away. They are not real. The lawyer says he is now wiser than everyone. He says he does not want money or freedom. He will leave 5 hours before the end of the bet. This will prove that he truly gives up the 2 million rubles. The banker closes his eyes. I wanted to kill him, he thinks, but he is the better man. He is rich in spirit. I am the poor one. Morning comes. The house wakes up. The banker gets out of bed. His heart is heavy. He goes to the garden. He checks the small house again. The lawyer is truly gone. He opened the window and climbed out. He left before the bet ended. The banker returns home. He goes to his safe. He takes the letter the lawyer wrote. He puts it inside the safe and locks it. He does not want anyone to see it. He's afraid people will learn the truth. The lawyer disappears. No one sees him again. He walks away quietly. He asks for nothing. He takes nothing. The banker lives on, but he never forgets that night. He never forgets the man who stayed alone for 15 years and gave up 2 million rubles to show the world that life is more than money. The end.
The lottery ticket. John Miller, a middle-aged bank clerk, sat comfortably in his favorite chair holding a newspaper. His wife, Sarah, sat nearby knitting a scarf. The house was quiet except for the ticking of the clock on the wall. As John flipped through the newspaper, something caught his eye. "Sarah," he said, "look here. The lottery drawing results are printed." Sarah's hands paused and her eyes lit up with curiosity. "Do you still have our ticket?" she asked. "Of course," John replied, pulling the ticket from his pocket. It was slightly crumpled but still readable. Sarah leaned closer. Read the numbers. Let's check if we won. John laughed lightly, shaking his head. Don't get your hopes up. The chances of winning are tiny. Still, he unfolded the ticket carefully and matched the first few numbers with those in the newspaper. Wait, John said, sitting up straight. His tone changed, becoming serious. The first 3 numbers match. Sarah dropped her knitting and grabbed his arm. What? Let me see. Hold on, John said, his hands trembling. Let me check the rest. He compared the remaining numbers and gasped. Sarah, he whispered, his voice shaking. We might have won the jackpot. Sarah's heart raced. Her mind filled with excitement and dreams of wealth. How much is the prize? She asked. $1 million, John said, his voice barely louder than a whisper. Sarah clapped her hands together. $1 million? Can you imagine? We'll be rich. For a moment, they both sat silently, letting the idea sink in. Slowly, their minds began to fill with dreams of how their lives could change. John leaned back in his chair, a smile spreading across his face. We could buy a country house, he said. Imagine a big garden, fresh air, and no noisy neighbors. And a vacation, Sarah added. We could travel to the seaside or even abroad. I've always wanted to see Paris. Paris? John chuckled. Why stop there? With $1 million, we could visit Italy, Spain, or even America. Sarah's eyes sparkled. We'd buy new clothes, fine furniture, and maybe hire a maid. No more cooking or cleaning. And we could invest some of the money, John said, his tone becoming serious. If we manage it wisely, we'll never have to worry about money again. Their simple, modest lives now seemed dull compared to the luxurious future they imagined. The possibilities felt endless, and for a moment they were completely lost in their dreams. But as they dreamed, a thought crept into John's mind. What if the money changes us? He said, breaking the silence. Sarah frowned. Changes us? How? Well, John said slowly, money can make people greedy. Friends and relatives might come asking for loans. They might think we owe them something. Sarah nodded. That's true. We'd have to be careful about who we trust. And what about you? John asked suddenly, his tone sharpening. Would you start spending the money foolishly? Buying things we don't need? Sarah's face flushed. Me? What about you? Would you waste it on gambling or silly investments? The room grew tense. The happy excitement from earlier began to fade, replaced by suspicion and doubt. John crossed his arms. Maybe we shouldn't even tell anyone about the money, he said. We could keep it a secret. Sarah narrowed her eyes. Why? So you can control it all? I have just as much right to the money as you do. I never said you didn't, John replied defensively, but someone has to make smart decisions. Oh, and you think you're smarter than me? Sarah shot back. Their voices grew louder, and the peaceful home they had shared just moments ago now felt full of tension. Both began to see each other differently, as if the money had already come between them. Finally, John held up the ticket again. Let's check the numbers one more time, he said, his voice trembling. Sarah watched as he carefully compared the ticket to the numbers in the newspaper. His face fell. What's wrong? Sarah asked nervously. John sighed deeply and handed her the ticket. We didn't win. I made a mistake. Sarah grabbed the ticket and checked it herself. He was right. The numbers didn't match. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Sarah leaned back in her chair and picked up her knitting again. John folded the ticket and put it back in his pocket. "Well," Sarah said quietly, "it's probably for the best." "Yes," John agreed, though his voice was flat. He picked up the newspaper, but the excitement and joy from earlier were gone. The dreams, the arguments, and the tension, they had all been for nothing. Life would go on as it always had, simple and predictable. Yet as they sat there in silence, both couldn't help but feel that something had changed. Even without the money, the brief moment of hope had revealed something about themselves and about each other that they couldn't forget. So as we can see, winning the lottery can have all kinds of consequences and not necessarily always good ones.
A Wicked Little Boy, 1882, by Anton Chekhov. Ivan Ivanovich Lapkin, an attractively looking young man, and Anna Semyonovna Samblitskaya, a pretty young girl with a turned-up nose, went down the steep bank of the river and sat on a bench. The bench stood very close to the water, between the thick young willows. What a wonderful place! You are sitting here, hiding from the whole world, and only fish and spiders, running around the water, quick as lightning, can see you. The young people were armed with fishing rods, nets, tins of worms, and other fishing tackle. After sitting down, they immediately started fishing. "I'm glad that we are finally alone," Lapkin started, looking around. "I have a lot to tell you, Anna Semyonovna. Quite a lot. When I saw you for the first time, a fish is biting. I realized then my purpose for living. I realized where my idol is, and to whom I have to devote my honest working life. Oh, a large fish is biting. Seeing you, I loved for the first time and loved passionately. Wait to tug your line. Let it bite. Do tell me, my dear, I beg you, could I hope for, not for the same from you? No, I don't deserve it. I can't even dare dream about it. Could I hope for... Pull, now!" Anna Semyonovna raised her hand with the rod, tugged and screamed aloud. A little silver-green fish flashed in the air. "Oh my God, a perch! Ah! Hurry! It's off!" The perch got off the hook, flopped over the grass to its pool, and splashed into the water. Chasing the fish, Lapkin accidentally grabbed Anna's hand instead of the fish and accidentally pressed it to his lips. She drew it back, but it was already too late. Their lips accidentally met in a kiss. Everything happened accidentally. One kiss followed another, then vows, promises. What happy moments! However, in this earthly life, there is no absolute happiness. Happiness is usually poisoned either by itself or by something from the outside. And so it was this time. While the young people were kissing, they suddenly heard a laugh. They looked at the river and were stunned. A little naked boy was standing waist-high in the water. It was Kolya, a junior high school boy and also Anna's brother. He stood in the water, looked at the young people, and sarcastically smiled. "Ah, you are kissing," he said. "Good, I will tell Mamma." "I hope that you, as an honorable man," murmured Lapkin, turning red. "To spy on people is evil, and to tell on them is mean, vile, and odious. I think that you, being an honest and noble person—" "Give me a rouble, then I won't tell," said the noble person. "Otherwise I will tell." Lapkin pulled a rouble out of his pocket and gave it to Kolya. He squeezed it in his wet fist, whistled, and swam away. Now the young people couldn't kiss any more. The next day Lapkin brought paints and a ball to Kolya, and his sister gave him all her pillboxes. Then they had to give him cufflinks with little dog snouts. The evil little boy apparently liked everything. He started to spy on them regularly, so that he could get more. Wherever they went, there he went. He did not leave them alone for a minute. "Scoundrel," Lapkin said through his clenched teeth. "He is so small, yet such a big scoundrel. What will become of him later?" For the whole month of June, Kolya did not leave the poor lovers alone. He threatened to inform against them, spied on them, and demanded presents. And to him everything was not enough. And finally he began to talk about a pocket watch. And so what? They had to promise the watch. Once, at dinner, when they served wafers, he suddenly laughed and winked with one eye and asked Lapkin, "Should I tell? Ah?" Lapkin turned wild red and began to chew a napkin instead of a wafer. Anna excused herself from the table and rushed to her room. Such was the young people's life until the end of August, when Lapkin finally proposed to Anna. Oh, what a happy day it was! Having talked to the bride's parents and having received consent, Lapkin first of all ran to the garden and began searching for Kolya. Finding him, he barely burst into tears from rapture and grabbed the wicked little boy by the ear. Anna, also looking for Kolya, ran up to him and grabbed him by another ear. And you should have seen what enjoyment was written on the faces of the lovers, when Kolya cried and begged them, "My dears, darlings, sweethearts, I won't do it again. Forgive me." And then they admitted that while they were in love with each other, they never felt such happiness and such captivating bliss as when they carried the wicked little boy off by his ears.
Joy by Anton Chekhov. It was 12 o'clock at night. Mitya Koldarov, with excited face and ruffled hair, flew into his parents' flat and hurriedly ran through all the rooms. His parents had already gone to bed. His sister was in bed, finishing the last page of a novel. His schoolboy brothers were asleep. "Where have you come from?" cried his parents in amazement. "What is the matter with you?" "Oh, don't ask. I never expected it. No, I never expected it. It's positively incredible." Mitya laughed and sank into an armchair, so overcome by happiness that he could not stand on his legs. "It's incredible. You can't imagine. Look!" His sister jumped out of bed, and throwing a quilt round her, went in to her brother. The schoolboys woke up. "What's the matter? You don't look like yourself." "It's because I am so delighted, Mamma. Do you know? Now all Russia knows of me. All Russia! Till now, only you knew that there was a registration clerk called Dmitri Koldarov, and now all Russia knows it. Mamma! Oh, Lord!" Mitya jumped up, ran up and down all the rooms, and then sat down again. "Why? What has happened? Tell us sensibly." "You live like wild beasts. You don't read the newspapers and take no notice of what's published. And there's so much that is interesting in the papers. If anything happens, it's all known at once. Nothing is hidden. How happy I am! Oh, Lord! You know, it's only celebrated people whose names are published in the papers. And now they have gone and published mine." "What do you mean? Where?" The papa turned pale. The mamma glanced at the holy image and crossed herself. The schoolboys jumped out of bed and, just as they were in short nightshirts, went up to their brother. "Yes, my name has been published. Now all Russia knows of me. Keep the paper, Mamma, in memory of it. We will read it sometimes. Look!" Mitya pulled out of his pocket a copy of the paper, gave it to his father, and pointed with his finger to a passage marked with blue pencil. "Read it!" The father put on his spectacles. "Do read it!" The mamma glanced at the holy image and crossed herself. The papa cleared his throat and began to read. "At 11 o'clock, on the evening of the 29th of December, a registration clerk of the name of Dmitri Koldarov. You see? You see? Go on." "A registration clerk of the name of Dmitri Koldarov, coming from the beer shop in Kozahin's buildings in Little Brunea, in an intoxicated condition." "That's me and Semyon Petrovitch. It's all described exactly. Go on, listen." "Intoxicated condition, slipped and fell under a horse belonging to a sledge driver, a peasant of the village of Durikino in the Yanovsky district, called Ivan Drotov. The frightened horse, stepping over Koldarov and drawing the sledge over him, together with a Moscow merchant of the second guild called Stepan Lokov, who was in it, dashed along the street and was caught by some house porters. Koldarov, at first in an unconscious condition, was taken to the police station and there examined by the doctor. The blow he had received on the back of his head— It was from the shaft, Papa. Go on, read the rest. He had received on the back of his head turned out not to be serious. The incident was duly reported. Medical aid was given to the injured man. They told me to foment the back of my head with cold water. You have read it now? Ah, so you see. Now it's all over Russia. Give it here. Mitya seized the paper, folded it up, and put it into his pocket. I'll run round to the Makarovs and show it to them. I must show it to the Ivanitskys, too. Natasya Ivanovna and Anisim Vasilyich. I'll run. Goodbye. Mitya put on his cap with its cockade and, joyful and triumphant, ran into the street.
It was a bright winter midday. There was a sharp snapping frost, and the curls on Nadenka's temples and the down on her upper lip were covered with silvery frost. She was holding my arm, and we were standing on a high hill. From where we stood to the ground below, there stretched a smooth, sloping descent in which the sun was reflected, as in a looking-glass. Beside us was a little sledge lined with bright red cloth. "Let us go down, Nadyezhda Petrovna," I besought her. "Only once. I assure you we shall be all right, and not hurt." But Nadenka was afraid. The slope from her little galoshes to the bottom of the ice hill seemed to her a terrible, immensely deep abyss. Her spirit failed her, and she held her breath as she looked down, when I merely suggested her getting into the sledge. But what would it be if she were to risk flying into the abyss? She would die. She would go out of her mind. "I entreat you," I said. "You mustn't be afraid. You know it's poor-spirited. It's cowardly." Nadenka gave way at last, and from her face I saw that she gave way in mortal dread. I sat her in the sledge, pale and trembling, put my arm round her, and with her cast myself down the precipice. The sledge flew like a bullet. The air cleft by our flight beat in our faces, roared, whistled in our ears, tore at us, nipped us cruelly in its anger, tried to tear our heads off our shoulders. We had hardly strength to breathe from the pressure of the wind. It seemed as though the devil himself had caught us in his claws and was dragging us with a roar to hell. Surrounding objects melted into one long, furiously racing streak. Another moment, and it seemed we should perish. "I love you, Nadia," I said in a low voice. The sledge began moving more and more slowly. The roar of the wind and the whir of the runners was no longer so terrible. It was easier to breathe, and at last we were at the bottom. Nadenka was more dead than alive. She was pale and scarcely breathing. I helped her to get up. "Nothing would induce me to go again," she said, looking at me with wide eyes full of horror. "Nothing in the world. I almost died." A little later, she recovered herself and looked inquiringly into my eyes, wondering had I really uttered those 4 words, or had she fancied them in the roar of the hurricane. And I stood beside her, smoking and looking attentively at my glove. She took my arm, and we spent a long while walking near the ice hill. The riddle evidently would not let her rest. Had those words been uttered or not? Yes or no? Yes or no? It was the question of pride or honor of life. A very important question, the most important question in the world. Nadenka kept impatiently, sorrowfully looking into my face with a penetrating glance. She answered at random, waiting to see whether I would not speak. Oh, the play of feeling on that sweet face! I saw that she was struggling with herself, that she wanted to say something, to ask some question, but she could not find the words. She felt awkward and frightened and troubled by her joy. "Do you know what?" she said without looking at me. "Well?" I asked. "Let us slide down again." We clambered up the ice hill by the steps again. I sat Nadenka, pale and trembling, in the sledge. Again we flew into the terrible abyss. Again the wind roared and the runners whirred. And again, when the flight of our sledge was at its swiftest and noisiest, I said in a low voice, "I love you, Nadenka." When the sledge stopped, Nadenka flung a glance at the hill down which we had both slid, then bent a long look upon my face, listened to my voice which was unconcerned and passionless, and the whole of her little figure, every bit of it, even her muff and her hood, expressed the utmost bewilderment, and on her face was written, "What does it mean? Who uttered those words? Did he, or did I only fancy it?" The uncertainty worried her and drove her out of all patience. The poor girl did not answer my questions, frowned, and was on the point of tears. "Hadn't we better go home?" I asked. "Well, I like this tobogganing," she said, flushing. "Shall we go down once more?" She liked the tobogganing, and yet as she got into the sledge, she was, as both times before, pale, trembling, hardly able to breathe for terror. We went down for the third time, and I saw she was looking at my face and watching my lips. But I put my handkerchief to my lips, coughed, and when we reached the middle of the hill, I succeeded in bringing out, "I love you, Nadia." And the mystery remained a mystery. Nadenka was silent, pondering on something. I saw her home. She tried to walk slowly, slackened her pace, and kept waiting to see whether I would not say those words to her, and I saw how her soul was suffering, what effort she was making not to say to herself, "It cannot be that the wind said them, and I don't want it to be the wind that said them." Next morning I got a little note. "If you are tobogganing today, come for me. N." And from that time I began going every day tobogganing with Nadenka, and as we flew down in the sledge, every time I pronounced in a low voice the same words, "I love you, Nadia." Soon Nadenka grew used to that phrase as to alcohol or morphia. She could not live without it. It is true that flying down the ice hill terrified her as before, but now the terror and danger gave a peculiar fascination to words of love, words which as before were a mystery and tantalized the soul. The same, too, the wind and I were still suspected. Which of the two was making love to her she did not know, but apparently by now she did not care. From which goblet one drinks matters little, if only the beverage is intoxicating. It happened I went to the skating ground alone at midday. Mingling with the crowd, I saw Nadenka go up to the ice hill and look about for me. Then she timidly mounted the steps. She was frightened of going alone. Oh, how frightened! She was white as the snow. She was trembling. She went as though to the scaffold, but she went. She went without looking back, resolutely. She had evidently determined to put it to the test at last. Would those sweet, amazing words be heard when I was not there? I saw her, pale, her lips parted with horror, get into the sledge, shut her eyes, and saying goodbye forever to the earth, set off. "Whoa!" whirred the runners. Whether Nadenka heard those words, I do not know. I only saw her getting up from the sledge, looking faint and exhausted, and one could tell from her face that she could not tell herself whether she had heard anything or not. Her terror while she had been flying down had deprived of her all power of hearing, of discriminating sounds, of understanding. But then the month of March arrived. The spring sunshine was more kindly. Our ice hill turned dark, lost its brilliance, and finally melted. We gave up tobogganing. There was nowhere now where poor Nadenka could hear those words, and indeed no one to utter them, since there was no wind, and I was going to Petersburg, for long, perhaps forever. It happened 2 days before my departure. I was sitting in the dusk in the little garden, which was separated from the yard of Nadenka's house by a high fence with nails in it. It was still pretty cold. There was still snow by the manure heap. The trees looked dead, but there was already the scent of spring, and the rooks were cawing loudly as they settled for their night's rest. I went up to the fence and stood for a long while, peeping through a chink. I saw Nadenka come out into the porch and fix a mournful, yearning gaze on the sky. The spring wind was blowing straight into her pale, dejected face. It reminded her of the wind which roared at us on the ice hill when she heard those 4 words, and her face became very, very sorrowful. A tear trickled down her cheek, and the poor child held out both arms as though begging the wind to bring her those words once more. And waiting for the wind, I said in a low voice, "I love you, Nadia." Mercy! The change that came over Nadenka! She uttered a cry, smiled all over her face, and looking joyful, happy and beautiful, held out her arms to meet the wind. and I went off to pack up. That was long ago. Now Nadenka is married. She married, whether of her own choice or not does not matter, a secretary of the nobility wardenship, and now she has 3 children. That we once went tobogganing together, and that the wind brought her the words, "I love you, Nadenka," is not forgotten. It is for her now the happiest, most touching and beautiful memory in her life. But now that I am older, I cannot understand why I uttered those words. What was my motive